As the century draws to a close, land is becoming one of the top issues in southern Africa, with many countries attempting to redress the imbalance of colonialism that saw the land being owned by the few. This is Zimbabwe, where the government has announced it's to acquire nearly 1,500 farms, a third of the country's agricultural land, for resettlement by its landless poor. A move championed by President Robert Mugabe at the recent ruling party Congress to the cheers of his supporters.
Those who have acquired land in the process, whether they have bought it or not, were acquiring stolen property.
The plan is to move communal farmers from barren patches of land like this one at Norton near Harare to more fertile commercial land. There are more than 100,000 families scratching a living on these lands. Among these people, there is a strong desire for more land.
Well, how can I really practice my own agriculture? I can do more besides this. Having enough land, I can do more.
But a few kilometres down the road at Norton Country Club, these members of the largely white commercial farming community were despondent after being told their farms would go with no compensation for land, merely for buildings and improvements.
It's devastating for the economy and for all farmers.
Everything we've reinvested we've lost.
We are still here. We've had faith in this country right up until now, and basically kicked in the teeth for it.
But it's not just white farmers who have been hit. Felix Mugari is the son of peasant farmers. He dreamed of being a tobacco farmer, and after 5 years of training and 18 years on the land, he has his own farm. Now the government wants to take his land. He fears what will happen to it.
The types of soils we have here would require some serious top management. You know, you can't farm perhaps as just a communal farmer on these sands and be successful. Perhaps you can grow a maize crop for one season and you can't grow successfully thereafter.
Farmers are formally objecting to the land acquisition, with claim that the damage to the economy is likely to be severe.
This time 8 years ago, we reported on the aftermath of the downfall of President Ceausescu in Romania. Problems in that troubled country continue. Romania has more children with AIDS than any other country in Europe. Their carers do what they can for them, but the money available isn't enough. In our special report, Paul Davis explains how British charity teams are trying to help.
For these children, it's a time for parties, a time for innocent enjoyment, untroubled by thoughts of an uncertain future. But those who care for them know some of the young faces celebrating the festive season will not be here next Christmas. Romania has more than half of Europe's documented cases of AIDS-infected children, a tragedy that does not go away, although the country has slipped out of the headlines since its revolution 8 years ago this Christmas. The fall of the Ceausescu dictatorship was followed by a flood of Western help, much of it aimed at sick and needy infants. But inevitably, aid dried up as other countries, other tragedies captured the world's attention. Those who remained, like Linda Hall of the British charity Children in Distress, say while they sometimes feel forgotten, the need for outside assistance is greater than ever.
All of these children here that you'll see today are all HIV positive and some have full-blown AIDS. They're all going to die. There is no cure, and even if there was a cure, they're now using triple cocktails of drugs in HIV and AIDS. Romania will never be able to afford these drugs. It costs about $10,000 a year for one child. And I have 60 children here. If I did have the money, how can I pick out one child for the treatment?
Linda and a team of British volunteers run a hospice at Chernovoda. Before it existed, children diagnosed HIV positive were often left on the streets to die. The hospice gets most of its patients from the nearby Black Sea port of Constanta. It was here that sailors first brought AIDS into Romania. When they were broke, it was common practice to sell their blood to Constanta's hospitals, spreading the disease into the population. Today, at the AIDS unit of Constanta's largest hospital, they diagnose an average of 15 new cases a month. The wards are overcrowded, which is why a group of British tradesmen have spent the last 6 months building a home for HIV and AIDS-infected children in Constanta. Their aim to create a family environment for youngsters whose short lives have been spent in institutions.
ethos of the thing is to give them a home for as long as they live. They're entitled to that. And it's not possible in the situation in which they are at the moment, so we want to make that possible.
The Chernavoda Hospice is expanding to include more schoolrooms and facilities for long-term care of AIDS victims. But the standard of that care will depend on donations from those who still remember yesterday's news headlines. Paul Davis, ITN, Romania.
Now sport, and two